Hello everyone, thank you for joining me once again on my channel. If you are new to this channel, I say a very big welcome to you, and if you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel and also liking my videos and sharing with your family and friends. I would like to just go straight into what I have for today. Currently the world is facing a crisis, but despite this we shouldn't lose track of the beauty of our world. A major part of this beauty comes from our diversity, our cultural diversity. That's with regards to food, clothing, music, you know. So to celebrate this diversity, I've decided to do a mini series where I'll be showcasing cakes made out of food from different countries. So I'm a Nigerian actually, so I'm going to be starting this mini series showcasing a popular Nigerian dish, which is called jollof rice with chicken. So I'm going to be making a cake made out of a cake made to look like jollof rice and chicken. So if you would like to see how I made the cake, keep watching to the end of the video and I promise you, you won't regret it. Thank you. I'll first start by making the lettuce. So I've laid out the lettuce leaves, and I'm using romaine lettuce here. So I'm using this brand of vegetable fat, the crisp and dry. So I'm going to rub this all over the lettuce leaves. After rubbing the fat on the leaves, I'm going to take some foil, bunch it up, and then put it under each leaf, like so. Next, I'll be placing edible wafer paper over the lettuce leaf. Then using a soft brush which I've saturated with vodka and a little green gel food coloring, I'm going to paint over this wafer paper. I'm trying to dab this paint on rather than dragging the brush across the wafer paper. This is to prevent me from making holes in the paper. I'm making this first coat really light green. So I'm using more of the vodka and just a little green gel food coloring. For the next coat, I'll be adding a bit more of the green gel color and painting away from the center of the leaf and more towards the edges. While doing this, I'll make sure that I paint over the veins, all the veins and the creases of the leaf. As I get closer to the edges of the leaf, I'll keep adding a bit more of the green gel color to make sure that the edges are darker, like you will see in a real lettuce leaf. After painting this leaf, I would paint the second one and then set them both aside to dry. So you can leave them out at room temperature to dry for 24 hours, or if you're in a hurry, you can put this like I did. I put it in the fridge for about 2 hours. Next, I'll be carving my cake using a serrated knife. This cake is an 8 inches cake which I baked using a blender. I'll be leaving a link to that video in the description box below. So I'm just basically cutting off about roughly 1 to 2 inches of the cake. I'm using the top of the cake which I cut out. I'll set the other one aside, and then I'm going to attach this cake to a plate using some buttercream icing. Next, using a smaller knife with serrated blade, I'm going to start rounding off the top edges of the cake. Next, I'll be taking off this caramelized bit off the top. So after carving the cake, this is what the cake should look like. It's sort of like a dome shape. So I'm now going to spread buttercream on it. This buttercream layer doesn't have to be smooth, as after putting the fondant, we're going to be covering the fondant with rice crisps. Next, I'll put the cake in the fridge for about 20 minutes for the buttercream to set. I've colored some fondant in orange, so I used the Sugar Flares orange gel food coloring in tangerine. I'm just spreading some corn flour on my surface to prevent the fondant from sticking to the surface. I'm now going to roll out this fondant. I'm going to be rolling it as thin as possible. After rolling the fondant, I'll get the cake out of the fridge and then drape the fondant over the cake. Using an X-Acto blade, I will cut off the excess fondant from the edges. Next, using my fingers, I'll try to seal and thin out the edges. I'm just using my fingers to make some slight indentations on the cake to give it a rough and irregular appearance before I move on to the next step. For this next step, I'm putting some golden syrup in a bowl, and then I'll mix in some orange and yellow gel food coloring. Next, I'll be adding some Rice Krispies into this syrup mixture, and then using a plastic spoon, I'll mix everything all up. When doing this, make sure that you mix everything properly until everything is combined. So basically the color we're going for is this sort of orangey color, which is the color of jollof rice. So when we've gotten that color, we're going to stop mixing and then set it aside. I wasn't quite satisfied with the color of my rice, so I decided to add some more color and some more syrup to give me that rich orange color. There, that's exactly the color I was going for. Next, I'll be making some peas using fondant which I've already colored green. So basically, I'll just take a little piece of the fondant and roll it in my palm. So I'll make a number of these and then set them aside. I've now finished making the peas, so I'm going to continue with the cake. Currently, I'm spreading the colored Rice Krispies all over the cake. At intervals, I'll be putting some peas, scattering it all around the cake. In this next step, I'll be making the chicken drumsticks. I have crumbled up the cake which I carved out initially, and I've added some buttercream to it, so I'm now mixing everything up. My dough is a little too dry, so I'll be adding some more buttercream. So basically, you should be going for a dough that is easy to mold and would hold its shape when you've molded it. Don't be afraid to get in with your hands, as you'll be able to feel the texture better. So I'm doing just that now. After mixing the dough, it should look something like this. Then I'm just going to take a little out of it, roll it first into a ball, then into the shape of a drumstick. Next, I'll be inserting one of these chocolate fingers into one end and then pinching the dough so that it sticks to the chocolate finger and forms the shape of a drumstick. For this part, you can use any type of chocolate finger or biscuit finger. It doesn't have to be the Cadbury one which I used in this video. Next, I'll be placing the drumstick on a parchment paper and then rolling it just to smoothen it a bit. Then I'll take a bit of the dough, roll it in my hand, and then attach it to the other end of the chocolate stick. After this, I'll make the second drumstick and then put both in the fridge to harden. They should both be hard enough to pick them up without them crumbling. I've brought the drumsticks out of the fridge and I've now melted some white chocolate. As you can see, the drumsticks are easy to handle. I can pick them up without them crumbling. So I'm now coating them with the melted chocolate, making sure that every part of the drumstick is covered with chocolate. When I'm done, I'll set it aside and then do the same for the second drumstick. After coating this drumstick, I'll put the 2 drumsticks back in the fridge so that the chocolate can harden. Next, using the sugar flare gel color in egg yellow stroke cream, I colored some fondant, and then I'm going to roll out this fondant. I'll be rolling it out as thinly as possible. After rolling the fondant to as thin as I like it, I'll bring the chicken drumstick from the fridge, place it on the fondant, hold on to one end of the fondant, and then wrap it around this chicken drumstick. Then I'm trying to fit the fondant to the shape of the drumstick. And when I'm satisfied, I'll seal the fondant just underneath the drumstick. When everything is sealed, I'll cut off the excess fondant, first using my hand, and then later using an X-Acto blade to trim it better. I'm rolling the drumstick on the table and also in my hands just to smoothen it further. The next thing I'll be doing will be to paint this drumstick using the same gel color which I used to paint the fondant, which is the egg yellow and cream gel food coloring, diluted with some vodka. Next, I'm painting some brown spots using the sugar flare chestnut brown gel color, and then watering down this brown spots using some vodka. I'm adding a bit more of the brown color. When I'm done, I would paint the second drumstick and then move on to the next step. Next, to give the chicken the realistic chicken look, I'm just burning the fondant. Ideally, guys, you should use a blowtorch for this, but sorry, my blowtorch died on me, so I had to improvise with a candle. When I finish with this, I would continue with the rest of the cake. Next, I brought out my lettuce from the fridge. As you can see, they are already dry. So the next thing I'll be doing will be to tear out the white bits from the edges. I'm not using the scissors here because I want to give it a more natural look. Next, I'll be using the scissors to shred the lettuce into little bits. I'm now going to arrange the shredded lettuce just by the side of the plate. I'm just putting some syrup to help some of the lettuce leaves stick better. After arranging the lettuce, I will now bring over the already prepared drumsticks and arrange them also on the plate. Look at that, it looks just like a plate of jollof rice and chicken. I'm even getting hungry looking at it. So that's it, guys. That's the finished cake, the jollof rice and chicken cake. You can see there's little peas in the rice. Looks so real. And also the chicken drumsticks and the lettuce. There you have it. So I'm going to now cut this cake to make sure that it tastes just as good as it looks. There you have it. And then my chicken. And lettuce. Really yummy. I'm also gonna have my lettuce. Cake. It's not cake. I'm also going to cut the chicken drumsticks. Thanks guys for watching. It's been a pleasure. The next country I'm going to be featuring in this mini series is the UK, which is my second country. So if you haven't already subscribed, consider subscribing to my channel so that you won't miss out on that video, as it's going to be very interesting. I look forward to having you back on this channel. I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Hello everyone, I am super excited today. I'm sure you can tell we are going to Brighton Beach and we're gonna have fish and chips for lunch, innit? Uh-oh, my attempt at pulling off a British accent has failed woefully. I'm sure you can see that. On a more serious note, today for our cultural diversity in food series, we're going to be featuring Britain. Britain is a very lovely country, and one of my favorite places to go to in Britain is the beach. And seriously guys, you can't go to the beach without having fish and chips. Anyway, because of the whole social distancing thing, although the weather has been good, it's been really sunny this past few days, we can't do that. So to remind myself of the good old days, I have made a fish and chips cake. So if you want me to show you how I made the fish and chips cake, just keep watching and I hope you enjoy the video. Also, don't forget to comment, to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, so that you won't miss out on any of my videos. So I'll just go straight to the cake. To start this cake, I've got leftover cake from my last cake project. So I've placed this on parchment paper and I'm just starting to carve it. I'm going to carve it into the shape of a fish. Guys, you can print a photo of a fish and chips dinner off the internet and use it as a guide while you're carving the cake. As you can see, I'm just trying to carve it into a kind of triangular shape. While I'm doing this, I'm also trying to round off the top edges and also the bottom edges of the shape. Here I'm just taking off the brown bits off the top of the cake. When you're finished carving the cake and it looks something like this, we can move on to the next step. I've laid a parchment paper on my surface and then I'm going to put some buttercream on this paper. Then I'll transfer the already carved cake onto this parchment paper. I'm also going to stick the two pieces of cake using buttercream. Then I'll start applying the first coat of buttercream on the cake. After applying this first coat of buttercream, I would put the cake in the fridge for the buttercream to set for about 20 minutes. When I get the cake out of the fridge, I'll apply a second coat of buttercream. And then I'll start attaching some cornflakes to the surface. This is just to give the cake some texture. You know how the body of a battered fish is a bit rough. So this is going to give it that effect. Now I'm just rubbing some buttercream on the edges of the cornflakes just to soften them a bit so that they don't tear our fondant when we apply it. I'm going to put this in the fridge again for about 20 minutes. While the cake is in the fridge, I'm going to color some fondant. So I'm using Sugar Flares gel food coloring in egg yellow stroke cream. As you can see, I've also got some corn flour on my surface. This is just to prevent the fondant from sticking to the surface. Now I'm going to start kneading the color in. Next, I'm adding Sugar Flares gel food coloring in chestnut brown. And then kneading this color in as well. After doing that, I'll now mix in some white colored fondant into the already colored one. Next, I'll put some corn flour on my surface. Then using a rolling pin, I'll start rolling out the fondant. After rolling the fondant out, I'll then roll it onto my rolling pin and then get the cake from the fridge. I'll then cover the cake with the fondant. As you can see, I'm trying to tuck the fondant under the cake. Now I'm using an X-Acto knife to trim the excess fondant. I used the pizza cutter to trim the remaining fondant because I needed something that would not pull out the fondant. So guys, you know how when you buy fish and chips, they put it in a paper? I needed to create something like that for this cake. So for that, I'm using edible wafer paper. I'm just spreading them out on a plate. Then I'm going to use some vodka to saturate this wafer paper using a soft brush to give it that crumpled look that you see with the paper used to put fish and chips. To avoid poking holes in my wafer paper, I'm just dabbing the vodka onto the paper. After working on the paper, I will then put it in the fridge for about an hour to dry. Next, using the cake leftover from carving out the fish, I'm going to carve out a base for the chips. The shape I'll be carving out is sort of like a half moon shape. After carving the cake, I'll coat it with buttercream. After this, I'll put it in the fridge while I roll out some fondant. The fondant I'm rolling out is the leftover I got from rolling out the fondant for the fish. So I'm just rolling this out. When I'm done rolling the fondant, I'll roll it onto my rolling pin and get the cake from the fridge. And then cover it, drape it over the cake. Next, I'll be trimming the excess fondant using an X-Acto blade. And then I'll be tucking the edges of the fondant underneath the cake. And when everything is properly tucked in, I'll be transferring the cake onto the plate which I've already covered with the edible wafer paper. I'm also transferring the fish onto the plate as well. I'm now going to paint the fish using some vodka and the Sugar Flares gel color in egg yellow stroke cream. Next, I'm just dabbing in some brown color just to darken it a bit. To further darken the fish, I'm just using a blowtorch to burn it at the edges, especially at the tail region. The next thing I'll be doing will be to make the chips. So to do this, I've got some cream colored fondant left over from covering the cake. So I'm just going to knead in some Tylose powder to help harden the fondant. Then I'll roll out the fondant on a piece of baking parchment. I'll be rolling this fondant out to a thickness of approximately 1 to 1.5 cm. Then I'll be using a knife to cut the fondant to the shape and size of chunky chips. Next, to slightly darken the chips and give it that fried look, I'm using a blowtorch just to burn it a bit. I had to move the chips to a plain board because the fire was burning the parchment paper. After preparing the chips, I brought the cake over and then I arranged the chips on the plate. After arranging the chips on the plate, I went on to prepare the pots for the tartar sauce and the ketchup. So to do this, I rolled out some fondant and then cut out 2 circles using a circular cutter. Then I placed the circles on parchment paper and set it aside. Then I rolled out some more fondant and then cut out panels long enough to go around each circle. Next, using some shortening, I'm going to attach the panels to the circles. Like so. Then using an X-Acto blade, I'm going to cut out the excess fondant. I'm now just trying to smoothen and seal the 2 edges together. I'm not going to worry too much about the seams because the way I'm going to place it on the cake, it will be hardly visible. Next, I'll make the second pot and then set both of them aside while I make the ketchup and the tartar sauce. To make the ketchup in a small bowl, I mixed in 1 tablespoon milk powder, 1 tablespoon granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon corn flour and 1.5 tablespoons of water. I mixed everything up. Then added some red and also some yellow gel food coloring. To tone down the brightness, I also added a bit of brown food coloring as well. I then microwaved the mixture at 15 seconds interval until it thickened. So for mine, I did it for a total of 1 minute and 15 seconds. I followed the same process for the tartar sauce, only this time I omitted the food coloring and left it plain. To complete the tartar sauce, I painted a piece of edible wafer paper green, and then when it had dried, I cut it into bits into the sauce. Next, I put the tartar sauce and the ketchup into individual plastic bags, and then I piped them into the pots which I prepared earlier. I'll now place the ketchup and the tartar sauce on the plate along with the fish and chips, and then make some peas for the cake using some already colored green fondant. And there you have it, guys, the finished fish and chips cake. So that's the cake, guys. I'm going to cut it now. I wish you were here to join me and know how delicious this is. It's really nice. One pea made it into my plate. Tasty. I'm gonna have some of the chips. Dip it in my ketchup. That's some tartar sauce. Thank you guys for stopping by once again and for joining me on my channel. We have now come to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you try it. You try the cake. The next country I'm going to feature on the cultural diversity in food series is China. So I hope you stop by then. But until then, keep well and stay safe, guys. Bye. Who wants some Chinese food?
Me.
Okay. Well, you heard it. You could hear the excitement in their voices when I asked who wanted some Chinese food. Personally, I really love Chinese food, and I don't think I've met anybody who doesn't. In my opinion, I believe that the Chinese are one of the best chefs in the world. They have a lot of a variety of dishes and very lovely dishes as well. One of my favorite restaurants in the UK is in Luton, Hong Buffet. It's a Chinese restaurant, and they do really, really lovely meals. In fact, whenever I go there, I spend like hours. In the restaurant. Anyway, today for this video, I have made a Chinese noodle cake, Chinese stir-fry noodle cake, to celebrate China. So if you'd like to know how I made this cake, keep watching the video till the end. And also guys, spoiler alert, we're gonna have special guests at the end of this video. They're going to join us in the taste and judge session. So if you want to hear their thoughts on what the cake is like, keep watching until the end, and I hope you enjoy the video. I've got my cake here. This is a 12-inch cake which I baked using my normal vanilla cake recipe, times 2 of it. I'll leave a link to the cake recipe in the description box below. I'll then place a 6-inch round cake plate on top of the cake and start carving the cake. So here I used the cake plate as my template, but you can also use any round 6-inch template, such as a cake circle cut out from cardboard. As you can see from the video, using the top template as a guide, I'm slanting my knife to get a curve that slopes downward, if that makes any sense. I'm also taking off just a little at a time, so I don't take off too much, because that will be difficult to fix. After carving the cake, I attached my 6-inch cake plate to the cake and then went on to coat the cake using chocolate ganache. After coating the cake with ganache, I put it in the fridge for 20 minutes to harden the ganache. When the cake had hardened, I applied a second coat of ganache to get a smoother finish, and then I went on to prepare a board to raise the cake about 2 cm off the surface. I prepared this board by taping together a circular board and some foam board about the same diameter as the wide part of the cake, and then I transferred the cake to the prepared board. So to do this, I placed another cake plate on top of the cake and flipped the cake over. After flipping the cake, I placed some parchment paper on top of the cake and then the board which I prepared earlier, after which I cut the parchment paper to roughly the same size as the board and then flipped the cake again. So the wider part of the cake was now at the bottom. Next, I put the cake in the fridge and in about 20 minutes, when the second coat had hardened, I brought it out, placed a cling film over it, and then smoothened it further using a fondant smoother. So guys, when I had smoothened the cake to the point where I was satisfied, I went on to prepare my fondant. So I've got here some fondant already colored black, and I'm just going to start rolling it out. Notice I put some corn flour on both the fondant and my surface, just to prevent the fondant from sticking to either my surface or the rolling pin. When I was done with rolling the fondant, I put some more corn flour on it, rolled it onto my rolling pin, and then covered the cake. I've now dripped the fondant over the cake, so I'll start smoothing it out using my hands and then later a fondant smoother. Here I'm just using an X-Acto blade to cut off the excess fondant. Now I'm using a fondant smoother to further smoothen the fondant. While smoothing the fondant, I also used the smoother to remove the excess fondant at the base, and then when I was done with the process, I placed the board on top of the cake and flipped the cake again. When I had flipped the cake, I now removed the board from the cake top and then started folding the edges slightly so that the small part of the work lip still remained. Before I started folding in the fondant edges, I first of all removed the first parchment paper. As I said I would earlier on, I'm just folding in the edges of the fondant. Notice I'm using the fondant smoother to press down while I fold and smoothing with my hands. When I was done folding the lip of the work, I went on to make the handles. So here I've got some black fondant rolled into two balls. I'm now going to roll them into tube shapes, after which I'll coat some sugar craft wires with some golden syrup and then insert the wires into the tubes. After that, I'll bend the tubes into a curved shape. Then when I'm done with the first handle, I'll make a second one and set them both aside to dry overnight or for several hours. Next, using some orange colored fondant, I'll roll out some carrot shapes, cut them into some sort of blocks, just like you would do if you wanted to julienne real carrots. Then I'll set them aside to dry alongside the work handles. After making the carrot, I went on to make the other vegetables. So to make the spring onions, I got a small piece of edible wafer paper and then I lightly painted it with a little green gel color, put that down very well with some vodka. Then I rolled the wafer paper around the bubble straw and then kept it in the fridge to dry. Then to make the celery, I mixed some modeling chocolate and some fondant. Then I colored it using a drop of edible green gel color as well as some yellow. Then I toned it down with about a drop of edible red color. I then rolled it onto a bubble straw as well and then made some light lines using a ruler before cutting it to the shape of diced celery. I then put it in the fridge to harden. To make the peppers, I rolled out some red fondant and some of the green fondant left over from making the celery. I then placed them on parchment paper, cut them into square shapes and then placed them on a cylindrical object and put them in the fridge to harden. I moved on to the next step, which was making the chicken pieces. So to do this, I colored some fondant light cream using the sugar flare edible gel color in egg yellow stroke cream. Then I rolled out the fondant onto a wooden board and used the kitchen knife to cut it into small uneven pieces with irregular shapes, just like normal chicken bite pieces. After doing this, I used a blowtorch to burn the pieces slightly in order to give it the golden brown color. By the time I had finished with the chicken, the pieces for the peppers had hardened a bit, so I brought them out to paint their outer surfaces. So for the red pepper, I painted it with some red extra gel food color, watered down with some vodka. And for the green peppers, I painted it with a drop of green gel color, some yellow, and a tiny drop of red, watered down with vodka. When I was done with painting the peppers, I brought the celery out, and then using the same mixture which I used to paint the green pepper, I painted the surface of the celery. After this, I put all the painted vegetables back in the fridge to dry. The next thing I did was to prepare the cabbage and the carrot. So I had some leftover fondant from making the celery and the green pepper. So I rolled this fondant out very thinly, and then using the mixture I used to paint the peppers, I painted the surface of this fondant. Then with a kitchen knife, I cut it up into thin shredded looking pieces. Then for the carrot, remember the cubed orange pieces I prepared earlier and left to dry? I brought these pieces out and cut them up similar to matchstick pieces. Then I set both the cabbage and the carrots aside. My next step involved cutting the peppers and the celery. So I brought them out of the fridge and cut the red and green peppers into thin slices and the celery into diced pieces. I now have all my veggies prepared. I have my red and green peppers, the celery, the chicken, the cabbage, and my carrots. So we're ready to cook this meal. I colored some buttercream with some cream gel color and a drop of brown gel color, and then I spread it on top of the cake. I mixed some modeling chocolate and some fondant, and then colored it with some brown and cream food color. Then I loaded some of the paste which I formed into a sugar paste extruder, and then using this I made the noodles. So I started placing the veggies, chicken and noodles interchangeably on top of the cake. Now using the scissors, I'm just cutting in the spring onion on top of the cake. Next, I measured where the pot handles were gonna go. I did this by placing the handles on the wok and then marking the points where each end of the handle would go. Then I cut out square shapes in the places I marked and then inserted the pot handle. So here I'm just measuring from the handle that I've already fixed to know where it aligns with the other side, so I'll know where to fix the second handle. And now I'm marking the points where I'm going to fix the handle. I will now cut out square shapes in the points that I marked and remove the fondant in those places. So that's where I'm going to insert the handle through. After cutting the holes out, I'm now inserting the second handle. Next, I made a paste out of a little water and some of the black fondant which I used to cover the wok, and then started using it to fill out the cracks on the handles and also the holes where I inserted the handles.
Sure.
Okay guys, so what do you think?
What is this? This is Chinese noodles.
Is it a cake or is it actual noodles?
No, a cake.
It's not a cake?
No, that's a cake.
It's a cake? But what does it look like?
Look like.
Chinese noodles.
Chinese noodles.
And do you like Chinese noodles?
Yeah?
You do?
Do.
Do. Okay.
Do.
Okay, now we're going to cut this cake, and you're going to tell us what you think about the taste. So you've told us that it looks like Chinese noodles.
Mommy.
So now we're going to cut it. Let's be sure it's really Chinese. It's really cake. Okay?
Chinese cake.
Oh.
Where?
Louis is excited.
Cake.
Yeah. Say?
Eat you.
It is cake. Louis, you say eat you. Say? It's all cake. Okay? So I'm going to give you a taste. Who's going to try first?
Me.
So these are our judges. Judges from the popular TV show called Little Chefs. So they are going to give us their Louis, hang on. They're going to give us their opinion on what the cake tastes like.
What is? What? Well, I would like to say that the cake tastes nice.
Tastes nice. Louis, how about you? Is it yummy?
Yummy.
It's yummy, yes.
Funny.
Okay. So thank you guys for joining us once again on this channel. I hope you enjoyed the video. The next country we're going to feature on the cultural diversity in food series is Italy. So I hope you stop by. Thank you. So I hope you stop by then. But until then, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, click like on the videos, and also share with your family and friends. I hope you stop by for our next video, which promises to be a very interesting one as well. So guys, do you have anything to say to our viewers?
Press the subscribe button, like, share with your friends, and click the bell to get notification.
Okay.
Please, we need more subscribers.
Okay, good. Oh, eat your cake. Louis, is that what you have to say?
We also need your support.
Louis, can you say subscribe?
Subscribe.
Please.
Please.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Till next time. Take care of yourselves and keep safe. Bye. Say bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to this channel, I say a special welcome to you. This is the 4th video in our cultural diversity in food series, and for today we are celebrating Italy. Yay! So I'm going to show you in this video how to make a pizza. A pizza cake. Today I'll be showing you how I made a pizza diavola cake. I know I didn't get that right. Anyway, pizza diavola is a very spicy Italian pizza. So in the video I'm going to show you how I made a cake that looks like it, complete with the hot salami and hot chili peppers. So if you'd like to know how I made the cake, keep watching the video to the end, and if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe, click like on my videos, as it will help me to expose my videos to more viewers. Thank you. So let's get right on to the cake. So guys, I'm going to first of all bake a cake in a pizza pan using my vanilla cake recipe. The link to a video where you can get this recipe is in the description below. While my cake is baking, I'll start making the toppings. So I'm going to be making just the chili peppers and the salami. So I've gone ahead to prepare my fondant for the salami. So here I've got some reddish brown fondant, white fondant, and a darker shade of the reddish brown fondant. To get the reddish brown color, I mixed both red and brown gel food color. So for the darker shade, I added more of the brown food color. This pizza cake is going to have minimal toppings. It's just the salami and the chili peppers. So I chose this particular pizza because it's a traditional Italian pizza, and from what I gathered, in terms of toppings, less is more in authentic Italian pizzas. To make the salami, I've taken the lighter shade of the reddish brown fondant, and I'm just going to roll out 4 different sized logs out of the fondant and then flatten them with my hands. Next, I'll roll out thinner logs from the white fondant and then start stacking the reddish brown and the white fondant up one after the other. When I'm done stacking them, I'll press them together and then roll everything into one big log. Next, I'll use a small knife to split the log into two, press the two halves together and then roll them into a single log. So I'll continue repeating this process until I'm satisfied with the appearance of the fondant. Although I just did this 3 times because you don't want to overdo it, as it would cause the colors to overmix and it will not give you the desired effect. When I'm done with the process, I'll set the fondant log aside and then roll the darker shade of the reddish brown fondant. I'm going to roll it very thin and then wrap it around the log which I prepared earlier. Here I'm just dusting my surface and the fondant with some corn flour so the fondant doesn't stick to the surface when rolling it. Now I'm wrapping the fondant around the log and then cutting it to fit using a small knife. Next, I'll roll it lightly on my surface to seal everything together. And then holding the two edges, I'll twist and seal them as well. Next, using my knife, I'll mark out random lines on the log, being very careful not to cut into the log. When I'm done wrapping the log, I'm going to place it inside some cling film and then wrap and seal it. When I've sealed it properly, I'm going to put it in the freezer for at least 30 minutes. To make the chili peppers, I colored some fondant light green using the sugar flare gel color in mint green. Then I cut up small pieces of this green fondant and then rolled them to form the shape of chili peppers. After forming them, I'll then bend them slightly, just like chili peppers. When I'm done forming the peppers, I'll wrap them individually in some cling film and then put them in the freezer for roughly 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I took the fondant peppers out of the freezer to paint them. So for the first coat, I mixed some vodka with some of the green color which I used to color the fondant initially. And then using a soft brush, I painted this all over the fondant chilies. So I did this for all of the prepared chilies and then allowed them to dry for about 10 minutes in the freezer. After they had dried, I applied the second coat, which I prepared by mixing some of the same green gel color with some vodka and a drop of red gel color. I added this gel color to tone down the green slightly. The red color that I used was the sugar flare gel color in red extra. When I was done painting the fondant peppers, I set them aside to dry and then moved on to the cake. My cake is now fully baked, cooled and ready to be carved. So here I'm using a small knife to mark out a circle about an inch away from the edge of the cake. This line doesn't have to be perfect. And then using the same knife, I'm taking off the caramelized bit off the top of the inner circle. I'm not going to throw away these cake crumbs, guys. I'll set them aside because I'll be needing them for the cake later. Next, I'll use a soft brush to apply some raspberry jam around the edge of the cake. This jam is going to serve as my glue to glue the fondant on later. Here I've colored some fondant cream with the sugar flare gel color in egg yellow stroke cream. I'll take some of the fondant, roll it into a log, and then start pressing it down with my fingers. When I'm done with this, I'll apply the fondant around the edges of the cake to form the pizza crust. So here I'm just pressing it down using my fingers to attach it to the cake, and then while doing this I'll also be tucking the outer edges of the fondant underneath the cake. I'm not worried about making the fondant smooth because it needs to have an uneven surface, just like you would see in a real pizza crust. The log that I made didn't go around the entire cake edge, so I'm going to make and attach another one to cover the remaining edges. As you can see, I'm just cutting off the excess fondant and then sealing the two ends together. Also, in this case, I'm not bothered about the seams because by the time I'm done with the next step, they won't be visible. I'm just using my knife to thin out the inner edge of the crust. And in the next step, using a blowtorch, I'll burn the fondant that I just attached. After burning the crust, I'll use a knife to cut the rough edges off. To make the tomato sauce, I'm putting some raspberry jam into the cake crumbs I set aside earlier, and then using a wooden spoon to mix them together. I'm just adding some more jam as it's a bit too dry for my liking. Here I'm adding and mixing in some edible red gel color to the mixture. Next, I'll add and mix in some edible yellow gel color as well to tone down the red. After making the sauce, I'm going to spread it on top of my cake using a wooden spoon. As you can see, I'm just trying to push the sauce to the edge without it getting onto the crust. For my cheese, I'm grating some white chocolate using a grater. To get large pieces similar to mozzarella cheese, I'm using the large part of the grater to grate some of the chocolate. Next, I'm going to start spreading the grated chocolate all over the top of the cake. After spreading the chocolate, I went on to finish off the chili and the salami toppings. So for the chilies, I sliced them up, and then using a fondant tool, I poked 2 irregular holes in the slices. Then I brought out the fondant salami from the freezer. By this time it was already very hard, and then I sliced it up as well. And then using my fingers coated with some corn flour, I flattened and shaped them further. When I finished, I melted the chocolate on the cake using a blowtorch. I then melted some additional chocolate in the microwave and then used a spoon to pour it on top of the cake. Next, I started placing the already prepared toppings on the cake. As you can see from the video, I'm folding some of the fondant salamis so it curls at the edges and it's not flat when I place it on the cake. So guys, that's the finished pizza cake. You can see the salami and the chili pepper. So we're going to now dig into this cake. We're gonna cut it. Got my pizza cutter here. Oh wow. That's it. It's a little weird. It looks like you're trying out pizza, but it tastes like cake. So guys, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for stopping by. It was lovely having you once again on the channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified anytime I put up new videos. I hope you really enjoyed this video and I hope you get to try the cake. And also I look forward to having you on my next video. But until then, take care and look after yourselves. Bye bye.